I don't really like reaction videos. There's little wrong with them conceptually, since it can be very satisfying to see reactions to big reveals or important moments, but the cynic in me always doubts the validity of these reactions. We live in an age of perpetual one-upmanship on YouTube, where every video has to be more incredible and outrageous than the last, and where being passive will see you swallowed whole by the murderous algorithm. I'm not saying that people can't be excited, I'm just saying that there's a better way to experience other people's excitement. And wouldn't you just know it, E3's happening right about now. So yeah, this is my E3 video in a way. Around this time, most people are speculating on what may or may not turn up and the many ways in which Banjo and Kazooie probably won't make it to the show this year. But I like talking about things that have already happened. So at least at that point, if I get something wrong, it's just because my opinion's wrong. You ask anyone what their favourite part of E3 is, and if they don't turn around and say the game reveals, which is almost literally the only unique thing about E3 compared to other conventions, I'd question their understanding of reality, to be honest. I've never actually been to E3, but watching on from the comfort of my own home, even I can tell the atmosphere that gets whipped up from an exciting game reveal is unlike anything you're likely to see in the gaming industry. I've always preferred crowd reactions because they're a lot harder to fake or over-exaggerate, and I watch footage of some of the greatest reveals in E3 history and I genuinely get a little emotional. I might be cynical, but I am not made of stone. Real men cry over games getting announced, don't even argue with me.
Come on and jump up in the air, jump without a care, jump up 'cause you know that
Throughout the years, E3 has undergone a lot of changes and has morphed from this relatively small event with only 3 major presentations into this giant monstrosity that spans the best part of a week and now welcomes the public in to sample some of the wares. Quite a lot of what we expect every year from E3 has been slowly cultivated over the years, which includes things that are kind of relevant to this video, like incredibly excited crowds and developers using reveal trailers to play off of this kind of energy. Back in 2002, Gabe Newell of Valve had ambitions of showing off his new video game at E3 in order to demonstrate what his team had been working on for the past 4 years and show how far they were ahead of the competition. This didn't quite work out in the end, but by the time that Half-Life 2 was shown off at 2003's E3, the world was in the palm of their hands. I maintain that you can always point to specific moments in history and say, yeah, this is where things changed afterwards and where nothing was the same after this point. Because when Half-Life 2 dropped in 2003 as this advanced FPS game with a fully interactive physics engine, this caused quite the shake-up. Valve might be deeply committed to running Steam as badly as possible these days, but in 2003, they were way ahead of the curve, and they were using this 25-minute demo of Half-Life 2 to, yes, show off their new game, but also their new source engine and all the ways it can and ultimately did affect the future of gaming. The only slight caveat is that the viewing audience for one of the most important presentations in E3 history are a little lukewarm during the whole thing. Like they aren't watching something that would have huge ramifications for decades to come. I mean, nowadays if we watch a trailer with an active physics engine, we just we don't really care. But this was 16 years ago, when shooters were mostly still a little rough around the edges. I think Valve needed a hype man, and I'm not sure Gaben would be that man.
jump up in the air, jump without a care, jump up 'cause you know that
I think we need to start giving a bit more credit to developers and publishers when it comes to E3. I mean, yeah, they're still capable of the occasional nugget of terribly tone-deaf information that goes down like a lead balloon, or just straight up lies and, false demos and that sort of thing, but very often in the past I've seen presentations that are self-aware and they know what climate they are presenting to. And is often the case, these presentations are more memorable for some reason. Because if you can appeal to an audience's preconceived expectations of what you're going to show them and what usually happens at an E3 conference, you're probably gonna do just fine. However, surpassing expectations is not as impossible as it might sound, as Capcom have shown the world recently with their continued desire to revive their biggest properties after years of leaving them dormant. Devil May Cry 5 was some big news last year, as was when Mega Man 11 was announced in 2017. But you would have some way to go to find a more striking reveal than that of Resident Evil 7. It's worth remembering that PT, the Silent Hill game that never happened because Konami and Hideo Kojima were having way too much fun arguing with each other, was still fresh in most people's minds by the time that Sony started playing this trailer of some kind of first-person horror game where the main character is exploring a dilapidated house with a specific attention to detailed environments, and yeah, this is basically PT. So you can imagine the crowd reaction when it turned out that this wasn't PT and was in fact a Resident Evil game? How the fuck? But they were too busy being dumb action games to care about having anything to do with horror. How have we arrived at a Resident Evil game that now looks really promising and apparently quite scary? It's actually a very clever ploy since the trailer is tense and spooky and just a bit weird, so it grabs your attention as potentially an exciting new IP, and then BAM! Actually it's Resident Evil with some kind of impressive return to form. Whoever decided to use Roman numerals to merge in with the word Resident Evil deserves a promotion, as does the person who decided to make the demo available to play later that night. And really, whoever decided to give classic Capcom properties a second chance in the limelight. I think it's safe to say that was a good idea.
Jump up in the air, jump without a care, jump up 'cause you know that
Super Smash Bros. Is Nintendo's biggest, craziest headline act. Not perhaps their flagship yet, since that still belongs to Mario, as it always will do, but when I think of how excited people were to see the Smash Bros. Logo reflected in the eye of an inkling, signaling that this hugely important crossover franchise was on its way to the Switch, there's not a lot around that can compete with that. Maybe Pokemon, since that Direct dropped in the week and I've seen so much fan art and it's only been 4 days, come on guys! Though, before Smash Bros. Was a fully fledged franchise, it still had the job of convincing the public that this was a concept that was worth their undivided attention. And hey, you know, the original on the N64 was great, but could always use some more ambition. And a trailer to be dropped to help entice people to buy the GameCube. I know it worked for me. Shit me sideways, what a goddamn perfect setup for Super Smash Bros. Melee. Nintendo had just spent an entire E3 conference talking about what characters they want to see on the new console, and then close it out with simply the opening intro to Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is also helpfully one of the best openings to any game ever made. This intro is so fast-paced that you can get across a ton of information in roughly 90 seconds of footage, while ensuring that you're not neglecting the big stories like Ice Climbers returning to the stage for the first time in 16 years, and Samus showing up to remind everyone that Nintendo still cares about her, despite there not being a Metroid game on the N64. Melee is often cited as the moment where Smash Bros. Kicked itself into high gear, and I see this presentation as the moment when Nintendo really started to embrace what information about Smash Bros. Can do to a person. In a few days, we'll likely find out who the next newcomer is to Smash Bros. Ultimate, and the reaction could be very similar to stuff like this. It's a good sign of consistency. Smash Bros. Is a little weird, since Nintendo don't have to do much more to convince people to buy it other than showing what they have, and I feel like that kind of reputation does owe a lot to Smash Bros. Melee, and this E3 conference in particular. You know, they just have to present a fighting game and a list of characters who may or may not be in it, and that immediately is a lot of copies sold already. You know, that is powerful.
jump up in the air, jump without a care, jump up 'cause you know that
You should come to expect at this point that most companies save the most exciting announcement for the finale. Mostly a Nintendo thing for some reason. Maybe Sony and Microsoft are worried that people will go elsewhere if they haven't got something to keep them engaged until the end, and if they spend too long talking about teraflops. But you can pretty much guarantee that Nintendo especially will bookend their presentation with interesting headlines. That's just a good sales tactic. You wouldn't want to lose momentum over the course of a presentation and have it slowly peter out into nothing. I can remember some fairly awful showings from Nintendo at E3, but 2004 was one of their absolute best. Arguably their best up until that point. After all, it was the first time many of us saw Reggie Fils-Aimé, and indeed the reveal of the Nintendo DS. They even teased the Wii and called it the Revolution, which is a name that is twice as cool as the Wii, and only 10 times as pretentious. But then we got to Zelda, and everything was fine. The history of 3D Zelda games has been told time and time again, mostly by me, so you'll probably think I don't have to explain it, but I'll do it anyway. So, Ocarina of Time came out, was really good, and people were like, hey, I want more of that. But then they got Wind Waker, which is also really fucking good game, but the cartoony style put a lot of people off and doesn't really do it nowadays, but at the time kind of did. So there was a need for a realistic take on Zelda again to be with the times, and hey, Nintendo needed a way to close out E3 2004, so it was just meant to be. Plus, there's additional factors like the demo from Space World in the year 2000 hinting at some kind of realistic duel between Link and Ganon, only for that to be shot down by Wind Waker's cell shading, which is of course wonderful and adorable, but understandably maybe not what people were looking for. I put it to you then that the perfect end to an already pretty spectacular E3 conference is a reminder that Nintendo sometimes listens to their fans and gives them what they want the most. This Twilight Princess trailer genuinely makes me feel a little weepy because you can feel years worth of frustration melt away at the sight of a trailer that doesn't show off all that much and almost acts as a proof of concept, but you can feel the excitement build in the crowd until it reaches a head and damn, he's beautiful! I think. This trailer has horse combat, vastly more realistic graphics, and even a reminder to subscribe if you've enjoyed this video and click that bell to receive notifications of every new upload. It's even got that incredibly stylish sword sheath, that's hard to say. It's even got that incredibly stylish sword sheath from Link at the end, something that transitions very nicely into Shigeru Miyamoto donning his sword and shield and taking in the crowd like, yeah, I am your god, I am pretty awesome. Miyamoto is the most wholesome man alive, and the goosebumps are very real every time I watch this. Please go watch it for yourself without me talking over it.
Jump up in the air, jump without a care, jump up 'cause you know that
I think it's safe to say that people get more excited over things they have some personal investment in. I remember watching the God of War trailer in 2016 where they had that incredible live orchestra and played through the opening 15 minutes of the game, and damn! When Kratos steps out of the shadows, it was like, wait, really? You fucking crazy people! This was also the same E3 as Resident Evil 7 and I think also Spider-Man, and it helped to confirm Sony as a force to be reckoned with on the E3 scene again. It was also a continuation of their incredible 2015 showcase where they seemed to be granting wishes left, right and centre like some kind of fan fiction. They also provided closure to one of the longest running stories in E3 history. And I'm not talking about The Last Guardian. In order to demonstrate that their new PS3 was capable of producing the finest graphics in the land, Sony commissioned Square Enix to make a tech demo of Final Fantasy VII, which is less than 2 minutes long, has no gameplay, and is simply a portion of the game's intro remastered to look all fancy-like, as a way of telling onlookers that, hey, this PS3 machine is really good, and maybe worth some of the $599 US that they're gonna charge for this thing in a year's time. And then nothing for many years except for the very quiet murmurings of discontent from Final Fantasy fans that Square don't want to remake Final Fantasy VII and have money leak violently out of their anuses. I mean, we heard rumours before the 2015 edition of E3, but it's like hearing rumours about Half-Life 3 coming out tomorrow. I don't care if your uncle works for Sony, I just don't believe you. Turns out we were all idiots. This was a magical time for everyone involved. They did the usual crap of teasing that they might be talking about an important video game before walking through a secretive trailer full of establishing shots and vague narration that can easily apply to both Final Fantasy VII and the idea of bringing this game back into the modern day. You know, like every developer does, am I right? This was a moment that didn't feel real while watching it, the kind of prediction that you'd stick in a corner of one of those bingo cards and fully expect to never see come true. It's one of the most popular JRPGs of all time, remade with modern graphics and made available on modern consoles. The crowd reaction is the only predictable part of any of this. Incidentally, the director of this remake has since come out and said that this game was shown off too soon, which is maybe why we've heard so little about it since 2015, but if I could bottle this excitement, I would bathe in it every day. How can one word bring so much joy?
Yes! Dude.
This is RabbidLuigi, and I will always cite Final Fantasy VII showing up at E3 2015 as the prime example of why leaking information ahead of time does no good for anyone. I mean, there were rumours that it might show up, but there's rumours every year because people really wanted this to happen. So the fact that it didn't get leaked and spoiled ahead of time made it one of the most unbelievable, memorable, and iconic moments in E3 history. At least until Master Chief gets into Smash Bros.